items that need to be shared for the end of the meeting? Okay. Anybody else? Tim, do you know, city manager, does he have anything to share? Okay, okey doke. Let me go ahead and say this. Council holds work sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays several times a month to exchange information with community stakeholders and gather input from staff, advisory boards, residents, and others. No votes or formal actions are taken during our work sessions. Tonight's work session is, of course, open to the public, as are all council meetings, except for those executive sessions, which are authorized by state law. Residents can always observe our deliberations, and we're going to pause periodically to provide opportunities for public comment. If you are hoping to speak, if you wish to speak during one of those periods, if you're here in the room with us, just raise your hand. After being recognized, you can go over to the podium. You'll need to state your name and give us an address. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A feature, the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Raise your virtual hand, or you can raise your virtual hand and we'll promote you so you can speak. Once again, I need a name and an address. We don't accept anonymous comments virtually. And if you're watching on Zoom, or if you're watching on cable TV or YouTube, just send us an email. The email address is questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So during the public comment, you'll have 3 minutes. And please just address one topic, the topic that we are currently under consideration, and we ask that you remain civil and avoid, questioning the motives of others. We're all neighbors, and it's a dialogue. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Tonight, the topic is legislative priorities. And we've got our two contractors who are working with us, Daryl Carrington of Carrington and Associates, and Jimmy Tarlow of L.A. Perez and Associates. So, we're at the stage, the legislative process, it's in its 69th day so far, and crossover day was on Monday. It's a critical deadline for the Maryland General Assembly. From what I've been told, there were more than 1,000 bills submitted this year, and bills have to either come from the Senate or the House, and they got to cross over to the opposite side for them to go forward. For the most part, there's exceptions every now and then. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We're going to get an update. Our contractors are going to give us an overview of what's currently moving. And Councilmember Pompey, of course, is leading us in the legislative matters along with me and the rest of council. We all work together. So, anything you want to say initially, Councilmember?
No, I think we can just jump right in.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start off with the state Senate bills. Actually, I said about 1,000. Actually, it's more like 2,500 bills, up close to 3,000. That's a lot of bills. So, Mr. Carrollton, if it's okay, I'll just call you Daryl, if that's okay. Why don't we switch over to the other? Yeah. Okay. See if the other microphone there, see if that works. Got a backup.
Just talk into it.
That one's going.
Oh, now it's green. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Daryl Carrington, Carrington and Associates, LLC. It's always a privilege and an honor to be with you all, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve you and your residents. As the mayor said, we generally do somewhere around 3,000 bills every year, and this year was no exception. And especially when you're looking at an election year, You're going to have folks really making sure they're trying to be responsive to their constituencies, and also with some of the extraordinary things that we've experienced at the federal level, there were several bills that had to respond to challenges to funding or the presence of federal agents in the state and the like. So I'm going to, not quickly, but I'm going to go through some of the bills that we've been tracking for this session, that we've had on our bill tracking list from either pre-files or the first few weeks of session when these bills were introduced, and all of these things have impacts for for the city of Greenbelt. And so please feel free to stop me at any time that I'm going through here if you have some specific questions, but I want to leave enough time for questions and answers at the end. So please.
And I was just going to say thank you for the overview. And ultimately, we're trying to make sure that we know about any additional actions, things that we need to do now that we've passed crossover. If there are opportunities where council testimony or letter would actually make a difference, it's a little bit easier to tell what's going to move forward based on the advice from the two of you.
Great, and I've kept that in mind, and I tried to factor that into my overall report that I would like to deliver for you. So I know one of the first bills that we saw that was going to definitely have impact, and Councilwoman Pompey brought it to everyone's attention, is HB 34, SB 189, which is Municipalities, Open Drainage Inlets, Inventory and Improvements, Mason's Law. Now, this is one of the areas in which Mr. Tarlow and I, we must work together because this is a state bill, but it's going to impact us at the county level. You have to look at your inventory. I know that the city manager has already directed staff to work with the county to figure out what of our assets are actually transferable to them, and then they will be responsible for those costs. But there is grant funding in the bill so that, it's not going to pay for everything, but it will certainly offset whatever the municipality's costs are for compliance. Another bill that's very important, and I should even ask, but I didn't copy the chief on this, but I'm going to start including him, especially if it's police-related matters, because he needs to know what's coming down the pike that could affect his budget for the next fiscal year. And so municipalities, enforcement officers, body-worn cameras, and impacts municipal enforcement personnel. It may require equipment purchases, policy development, and data retention costs. And that's really the big driver of the cost, is that how long you have to preserve video after it's been taken. And so that has moved, and I'm keeping my eye on it for you because, as I said, it certainly has fiscal impacts and challenges for you all. We also have been monitoring, and I'm actually happy to say it's been moving, HB 386, SB 281, which is Metro Funding Modification Act of 2026. Obviously this is a regional transit money, and that affects WMATA and service levels for the residents in Greenbelt. There was also HB 446, SB 555, Health, Dementia Services, and Brain Health Program and Provider Research Toolkit. That's also moving along. We didn't put in written testimony, but we are monitoring it. We also were concerned with HB 711, SB 506, Data Privacy, Consumer Data, Public Records, and Message Switching Systems, Data Privacy Act. So we are monitoring that closely as well. We have HB 1018, SB 985, which is our correctional services, correctional facilities, and immigration detention facilities minimum mandatory standards. It has limited direct impact, but there are policy implications that we want to be aware of. We have SB 1142, which is a task force to modernize county and municipal revenue structures, very important to our bottom line. One of the bills that was really important was HB 1178. This is one of the few bills that we had to oppose. We offered friendly amendments. Those amendments were rejected, and the bill has moved from the House to the Senate. In the Senate, we have two members on. This is HB 1178, Municipalities, Annexation, and Limitations. And that particular bill did pass through crossover, so it's now sitting in AAA. And in AAA, we do have Senator Ron Watson and also Senator Harris from Prince George's County. Reached out to them to express the concerns that the city of Greenbelt has with respect to the bill. It did not pass last year. It was introduced as HB 1525, if I recall, and but it didn't make it out of the House last year. This year, it's made it out of the House. The Senate delegation is reviewing it, and I do not know at this time what Triple E is going to do with that particular bill. But of course, I'm monitoring, and I'll let you know when it gets scheduled for a hearing. That may be an opportunity if you would like to see if you can testify in opposition. But we have to be very fluid, because at this time of the year they are literally adding bills with almost no time to even for the witness sign up. Like they'll post it. You have like one day, and then all of a sudden the record's closed. So
The sponsor in the
please,
Senate.
this bill is sponsored by both Andrea Harrison and I believe Delegate Karen Tolles.
In the House, but over in the Senate.
This is only a House bill. There was no cross file.
And hasn't this bill has been amended though, right? So there's now it's just, instead of having to get permission, you just have to inform.
You have to inform via either by electronic communication and by postal service. And I guess their point of view is that these are your neighbors. You're just either reaching out to District 22 or District 23, for your purposes. Let's see. Okay, now the bills that we supported that are likely not moving through, and I've explained. The bottle bill has it has a lot of supporters. However, it is opposed by a lot of strong groups as well, and so the body in previous years they've moved it out of the House, and then it usually it lost momentum in the Senate. This year they didn't move it out of either chamber, so that one I don't believe is going to move any further. We were also interested in HB 350, SB 255, which is the Voting Rights Act of 2026, counties and municipal corporations. It didn't make crossover. Doesn't mean it's dead, but bills that don't make crossover have a huge procedural, hurdles to cross. Also, we were following HB 577, SB 334, criminal law, firearm crimes, machine gun convertible pistols didn't advance. HB 797, SB 439, employment discrimination, fire and rescue, public safety, employees, use of medical cannabis. It didn't make crossover. SB 159, emergency medical services, vehicle and ambulances, required supplies, no movement. And one that surprised me is that Senator Washington, Alonzo Washington's SB 198, Prince George's Community College, Aerospace and Aviation Systems Technology Programs Feasibility Study. It was a study, and that didn't make crossover either. I'm not going to go through every bill that we had on our list, but we are watching the ones that we described that do still have an opportunity to move through. The one bill where you may want to weigh in on that's left is the one that you have opposition with, which is HB 1178. But I don't know at this particular time, does it make much sense for you to weigh in on that when we're still, they still have to do conference committee for the budget and yada, 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 yada. So I'm of the opinion to stand on the sidelines a little bit on this one and let them do what they're going to do, because at the end of the day, the impact to us is not that this stops us from annexing anything or not. It's we send a little love note to the to the people that we're annexing with.
Yeah, sometimes sending a letter, if it's not just right, it actually draws more attention and actually can backfire on us. And hopefully that wasn't the case with the annexation piece. But there's one bill, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was a bill that Senator Kagan had put forward that had to do with election equipment that would, and I'm wondering.
I can look that up for you, Mr. Mayor, and I can make sure I send council a quick memo on that. I'm just making a note for myself, so I'll look that up for you.
Packed with ranked choice voting, I believe.
Senator Kagan is our resident election person.
It's great, great senator too. I have a good rapport with her.
And you said it was about electronic communication with the
Election voting systems. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that moved or not. I think I saw that, and I don't think it moved, but I'm going to double check that for you.
Okay, questions about what Mr. Carrington has just presented, or concerns, questions about other bills? I know the bottle bill, it's a disappointment. Many of our residents in Greenbelt and many of us on council have strong feelings about how that could positively affect the environment, and perhaps it would not be that cumbersome to implement, given that so many other states do that.
If I may, and this is not based upon the merits or against the residents in any way, but there are only about 10 states in the United States that actually have this, and 3 of them, I believe, have been trying to get out of it for several years. One of our challenges is it's I'll use Senator Watson's question to the body, and he said, we have to be very careful. Let's look at Prince George's County and specifically between bottles and cans. Our recycling, we do about $500,000. That directly supports the salaries of the 3 people that work at our recycling center. And someone mentioned, oh, well, we have a 3-year blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, so we're going to fire them 3 years from now. But I mean, that person has a full-time employment in the job and they're working. So we have to be careful of the consequences that we may not think of when we go after things of this nature. So,
And how about the Sunday sale, not Sunday sales, the liquor store
grocery
sales?
sale. Listen, that's a very controversial bill. I am of the opinion that it's a good idea to allow beer and wine, and I'm as crazy to say spirits. I mean, I would like one-stop shopping, and I am sympathetic to folks that say that you're going to be hurting small businesses, but usually these businesses are family-owned. It's only the people who actually are part of that family that work there. There's never residents from that particular subdivision or whatever that actually get jobs there. And I grew up in the inner city, and I know for me, I never saw anything practically good whenever we put another liquor store in anywhere. That's just me.
I hear you.
Just me.
Council, I know there are other bills and initiatives that we're passionate about. Before we move over, yeah, please, council member.
What was the status of the what was the status of the just cause?
I'm so glad you asked me that. Yeah, that's another one of these things where we have to look at it in terms of, believe it or not, I hate bringing up COVID, but you have to remember all of the protections that we put in place for renters to keep people in their homes, because obviously that's a health emergency if we have COVID and you don't have a place to live. And so the body probably feels that it has to allow the landlords a few years of not having anything changed and put upon them, after taking in the changes that they had to accept during COVID. So I think that may have been one of the reasons why Just Cause didn't move this year again. But that does not mean that it's not coming back next year. And hopefully, in the interim between, sine die and we go back to session, the opponents and the opponents will get together and try to iron out some of the differences, because that's really what the body is looking for. They know that everyone's not going to come together and hold hands and say kumbaya. But if you can show that you've both worked on something, you've tried to come to the middle a little bit. And you have to always remember that if everybody walks away from the table a little annoyed and agitated by what's on the table, that's probably a good deal on the table, because it's compromise. So everyone doesn't get what they want, but we got something that we can all work with and get consensus around. So,
Makes sense. Go ahead.
And then you sent us the fiscal note today. Delegate Williams sent it to me too, actually, for Senate Bill 1005, which was a late filed bill that we've been getting a lot of emails about from our residents, who are mostly concerned about good governance and don't seem to understand why we would be undertaking such a expensive restructuring when we, are operating at when we had this huge budget gap that we basically closed by taking money from public schools, and now we're going to sort of spend more money to do this. So we're hearing from a lot of residents about this, because this is not a small fiscal note.
And obviously I'm well acquainted with this. I know more about HSB 1005 than anybody probably wants to know. First and foremost, this bill has zero impact on the state. I mean, negligible at most. It doesn't change the portfolio of parks that they have to still service. This is changing IT, legal, and HR. And yes, there's a price tag attached to it, but that doesn't come from municipalities. And this is what, now listen, let's keep it being completely honest.
Residents, though.
Okay, I'm just saying that from an operational perspective, I'm saying that it doesn't have a direct impact on the city. And I've been online. I've seen the online discussion, and I mean, we have a lot of folks that went to the University of Facebook Law School, and they're online, and they know zoning so very well. But again, this is an internal governance document, which is why I didn't weigh into it too much, because it doesn't have a direct impact on our operations and the way in which we work. It's not going to change our working relationship with park and planning. This is strictly their internal thing that they want to do. And at the end of the day, it's being opposed by Montgomery County. So with it being late filed, scheduled for hearing after crossover, procedurally speaking, it faces a lot of hurdles. That said, I've watched, matter of fact, former county executive Rushorn Baker, when he was a delegate, on Sine Die, he introduced a bill to completely change our school system, and by the time the confetti fell, that was law. So they can suspend the rules and do whatever they want when they need to for themselves. I don't know, this is the first year that this has ever been introduced. Typically, first year bills don't really move. They may go to a study. It may go to a study, or it just may get reintroduced next year. I don't know. But for this year, even if it passed, it wouldn't have a direct impact on our operations.
Yes, Councilmember Fritz.
Both in my day job, I work a lot with MNC PPC, and then obviously some of our members attended MNC PPC's Neighborhood Planning Academy, which was a great event that they put on to educate elected officials, but also they provided as an educational service to their to all county residents as well. I guess I have an observation and a question. Maybe I'll ask the question first. Do you know specifically who? Was it the Prince George's leadership of MNC PPC that was seeking this change? Or, I guess the question is always, what problem is this trying to solve?
That is a great question, Councilman. And I did reach out to Chairman Barnes to see if, to get his, his take on this. I wasn't able to reach him this afternoon. But I will follow up with him again. This was introduced by the Prince George's senators. I'm not quite, and obviously the chair of the delegation is Senator Ron Watson. I do have a call into his office. They're actually meeting this evening as we're speaking, and they're having their deliberations about, the bills that are remaining that they're looking at. So I will ask the question as to, the obvious question we always ask whenever you have a bill is, what problem is this seeking to address? So I will ask that, but at first blush, I would imagine just if I were the head of something, I may want to have my own IT person, I may want to have my own HR people, I might want to have my own legal person. I'm saying that is not something that strikes me as particularly odd that someone who takes over something would like to have their own team. I mean, I like to have, the team that I choose, and if I lose with this team, at least you can blame me because this is my team and I chose them, versus I have to work with what you have, and maybe there's something. I have no idea. I'm not trying to implement it, but I will find that out for you.
Right. Thank you. No,
My
I mean,
pleasure.
that's all. Thank you for reaching out. And, obviously this is moving very fast. I, totally understand that, they might be still deliberating internally on this. Beyond the cost, my biggest concern is that, this is a very powerful agency. It's been around almost 100 years. It's going to celebrate, I think it's centennial next year. Very historic agency, one of the largest park systems, I think, in the country. And this seems like a step towards bifurcating it. And maybe there's an argument for that or against that, but it's just, it is also useful to our residents that there's reciprocity between the two park systems. So that means our residents have access to, world-class parks in Montgomery and Prince George's County. And then I do sometimes worry that the goal of the commission was to be an independent agency, and giving the political appointees more leeway over who they hire does change that power dynamic, so that would be much more centralized under. And in Montgomery County, the county executive has no role in appointing the planning board. It's actually a completely different model where it's completely council appointed, and then the county executive has the option to veto that member. So the two counties have actually picked polar opposite ways of staffing the commissions. And I do think that actually does create a professionalism in the agencies and an independence that I don't always agree with their decisions. I think a lot of us can name all the ways that we disagree, but they do retain a lot of very highly talented, and they attract very talented staff from across the country want to work at MNC PPC. And whenever we change the internal governance, I do think that that could have second order effects on the political independence of the body. And I think we just have to think about that in totality.
One thing I would love to address, and not the second part, but the first part, is that I didn't read anywhere in the bill there would be any changes to the reciprocity for our residents using their parks and the like. That's not a part of the bill. That's a part of the online discussion, but that was not a part of the bill. The only thing that this bill addresses, IT, HR, legal. And all of the other functions stay the same, and they have to operate under existing law for everything else. So it doesn't bifurcate the two agencies except for those three functions. I just wanted to make sure that the residents hear exactly what's in the bill versus the discussions I'm seeing online that they're all over the place. I mean, like literally, they run the gamut.
I don't want there to be panic about this either. I don't think it's the end of the world either, but it's just like I said, second order considerations that long term it might how does this shift the culture of what has been a very independent body that has maintained a very high level of professional and technical capacity.
Those are great points, Councilmember Fritz, and our residents. They truly care about good governance. So when they see something and there's a red flag and they don't have all the information, they react, which is a good thing. That's why Greenbelt is the way it is. I have questions about maybe two more bills.
Oh, absolutely.
One, that HB 831, the collective bargaining expansion, did that cross over or not?
No, it did not cross over, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and that would have been statewide legislation.
That is correct, sir. And statewide collective bargaining legislation has always faced an uphill hurdle. As you know, I used to represent ASME Council 67 many years. It took us, 7-8 years to get the collective bargaining for adjunct professors. I mean, that's like, and you would think that we could just do it in one fell swoop for all classes and all categories of employees. However, we have to go for every class of employees separately to get them collective bargaining rights. And so I thought that was going to face an uphill hurdle, making a blanket, policy. So.
Yeah, it just would have been helpful for municipalities, just setting some parameters so that each municipality is not reinventing the wheel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
The other one that I wanted to ask about was HB 1223. That was the farmers market street food vending zones. That was a county bill.
And that surprised me that it hasn't moved at this particular time. Does not mean that they can't still advance it, but the problem is that if the delegation doesn't move it, then it doesn't get a committee hearing. And so that's the rub on it right now. But it has not moved. I did have that on our list, and that's why it's not included in your post-crossover report.
Suppose we could talk to Delegate Williams if we need to about that. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, please.
Yeah, two more. Well, and just on the, I know that there's a law pending. I don't think Governor Spanberger has signed it yet, but in Virginia, they've actually voted to expand collective bargaining rights to all of their public sector workers, minus a few academic employees. So Virginia is leapfrogging Maryland in that regard by leaps and bounds. And that would take effect July 1st, 2028, if it's signed into law. My question was on Senator Sidner's legislation on the voting rights. I believe I saw that passed the Senate. I have the number in front of me.
Senate Bill
255. Yeah. So, Voting Rights Act of 2026.
Yeah, bill supported earlier, likely not passing. I have HB 350, SB 255, Voting Rights Act of 2026, counties and municipal corporations. It didn't make crossover. It did not make crossover.
Okay, good. Well, not good, but I just...
No, I understand.
Just thank you for the update.
Good, but I understood what you meant.
Against it, but I saw that MACO had opposed it and that they had concerns about that.
If I may, and this is no offense to my friends at MML or MACO, MML, but your position and their positions can differ.
Yeah.
Okay. You are the city of Greenbelt, and what's best for your constituents is what's best for the city of Greenbelt, regardless of any position that MML may take. And I good friends there, love them to death. But you guys have to run your city.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Just the bill
please.
that you were talking about earlier, the municipal elections qualified electronic transmission systems, that was HB 1066 and Senate Bill 727.
1006. I'm sorry.
1066. House Bill
1066.
1066
Okay,
and
I'm
Senate
good.
Bill 727.
If you'll allow me, I'll follow
Yep.
up on that and send you guys a memo. Make sure I'll let you guys know where it's at. Did we have this? I mean, I'm sorry. I just numbers are all flying through my head right now. I can't keep them all straight. But did we have this on our list?
We did.
We did?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think it cross. If it's not on my permanent list for your post crossover, it did not cross over. That's the only two bills I have on your list that didn't cross over because of the focus is SB 1005 and also HB 350, which was the the bottle bill. So I had those on there because those were priorities. Everything else, if it didn't move, I took it off of your sheet just because of the so you could just see what we have in front of us as we get towards Sine Die.
Right.
You got one the day you got the one the day after Sine Die, right? The 24th. You got one.
In the packet, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not on you. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
No worries.
So, Mr. Carrington, before we pivot over to L.A. Perez and Mr. Tarlow, can you just concisely kind of describe the process that's going to take place between now and Sine Die and how we can engage?
So, and thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. And this is where I would say, like, for example, HB 1178. As soon as that gets scheduled, I want to let you know because at very least, because it's virtual, you can testify from your offices, if you have day jobs and the like, you'll want to weigh in and talk about, as I said, I don't think that this bill is as burdensome as it was originally drafted. So I don't know if you have to weigh on that, but I really think that we've had a pretty good session. As a matter of fact, the thing that I wanted to get most out of it is what we got, and that was a commitment from the state that HB 1078 from last year, which gave us $200 million for infrastructure, is not being taken to fix this budget deficit because $200 million is a big number. And it goes a long way to help shut down a $1.3 billion deficit. But we are fine. The state's committed to it. I sent it to you in writing, and we're good there. Everything else, I would say, we will monitor the things that we've been looking at, but I don't see us having to jump right now. There's nothing for us to have to jump on.
So the bill you just described is for infrastructure. Should the FBI
Correct.
proposal move or come back into the realm of possibilities, which it still is?
Absolutely it is. It's already been approved.
That would go to make modifications to make the exchange there off of the Beltway a full exchange.
And that's just a drop in the bucket of the infrastructure monies we're going to need to get prepared to have that relocation happen.
Garage and just
Precisely. And also remember, I am going to put a call into Congressman Ivey's office just to find out what happened to our $800 million that was supposedly encumbered 2 years ago. And, I would like us to still have access to that.
Congressman Hoyer might know just as.
I'll reach out to Congressman Hoyer.
I think that he would. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Please.
just a little bit of a go back. Understanding how these works, but this Voting Rights Act, this one that says that it has a hearing on April 1st, but this is the one that you said you thought didn't make crossover.
Give me that number one more time. I'm pulling it up.
S Bill, 0255, Senate bill.
Senate, can you pull up Yes, sir. Just 1 second, Councilwoman.
I don't know. I think there were a few things that had voting in the title, and I'm not sure if we're keeping them all straight.
There's voting machines and voting rights.
Okay, this actually made it on third reader. So it has a April 1st hearing. Find the crossfile for me. Hit the Yeah, that's why I didn't put it on. The House bill, okay, so there's a little nuance here. Okay. Oftentimes, when a bill passes one chamber, sometimes they go, oh, well, that's coming over, we'll just work off the crossfile. But typically, that means we had the hearing, we put it in a drawer, now send the crossfile over, okay, we'll have a hearing for it, and then it goes and sits in a drawer with the other version, and it sits there until sine die.
Okay, so even though there's a hearing, that doesn't necessarily indicate that it's actually moving forward.
Crossover only guarantees you a bill hearing in the opposite chamber. That does not mean your bill is moving. And I guess because of that little nuance, maybe that's why I didn't put it in there and include it, and that's why I considered it dead in my mind, because of that reality.
So circling back, so the process, what are the next steps? You said committee hearings?
So what
or
will happen is
reconcil-
this. So they've already had the hearing on, the House version was what, 350? Okay, so they had the hearing early February, which tells you a lot about what they, because they had several weeks before crossover to move that. So the House heard it. I don't know that they want to move it. However, the Senate, where the senator's at, they moved his bill and they sent it over to the House. Now, the House committee will take their bill, they'll look at it, see the markup, the amendments. Maybe they like it. Maybe go, hey, you know what, this is far better. We'll just move this to the floor. Could happen. However, oftentimes what I see happen is they get the hearing, they have to schedule because that's the rules, and then after the hearing, there's no further movement. And that's the only reason why I didn't include it. That would have been the reason.
Not under,
No, it's
it's a
nuanced.
complicated process.
Look, it's amazing we get anything done now, isn't it? Pro Tem? I mean, and listen, it is far easier to kill a bill than to get one passed.
Well, if there's 2,500 of them total, like that's.
And we
a
only
lot.
pass about 600 or 700 per year. So we pass about a third of the bills that are introduced. And out of all of those, honestly, you look at the list, it's mostly departmental bills, technical fixes. There aren't a lot of dramatic, huge, big initiatives that we get passed. Now, this year, they had about a 4-hour hearing on rate relief. It's the Speaker's bill. It's big, it's huge. Hopefully, it'll save us a little bit of money, lots of interest. But as Mr. Turlow knows, we don't get a lot of huge, big bills done that often. So, but thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to explain. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to explain. Thank you.
One more time. So the process, bills have crossed over. There'll be reconciliation hearings.
Well, okay, so the way the process would work is this. So let's say the bill comes over, the House changes its version, they pass something, that goes over to the Senate looks at it, they change a couple things, and they send it back to the House. Well, now they would go to what's called conference committee. And that's where they assign 3 people from each chamber, so 3 people from the House, 3 people from the Senate. Sometimes it's the chair of the committee, sometimes it's an expert on the issue. Oftentimes they try to have 1 member of the minority party as a part of the conference committees, and then those 6 people get together, chop up. Sometimes they change things completely. But then after that, they take whatever they come up with, if they decide to come up with something, they take it back to their respective chambers, and it gets an up and down vote. If either chamber votes no, the issue is dead. It's remarkable we get anything done.
So then there's the BRFA, the budget reconciliation.
So they work hand in hand. So we have a budget and we have a Bertha. And I will concede this. When I first got to Annapolis, I thought the Bertha was a woman. Because then people was like, oh, the Bertha's coming out. The Bertha's coming out. I'm like, well, where's she at? I mean, I've been trying to meet her. Everybody's talking about her. So, so the Bertha is actually the Budget Reconciliation and Finance Act. And that's the companion to the budget to clean up all the technical things with her. I'm in Jimmy's world right now. He's Ways and Means, or Ways and Schemes, as we used to call it. And they, I'm sorry. And so those 2 things work in concert. So they pass both the budget and the Bertha, but that's also because the House and Senate have different versions. That's going to go to conference committee. Now, one thing that they have to do, the only thing that we're constitutionally required to do, is a balanced budget. So the budget will have will get passed.
Those 2, and then it goes to the governor to sign, and the governor does not necessarily sign every single bill.
He's going to sign the budget when he gets to it. I feel reasonably confident he's going to sign the budget.
Just trying to, kind of.
Scare the hell out of everyone.
Just trying to get a good sense of the process. so
No,
that everybody,
my pleasure, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? If not, let's go ahead and pivot to Mr. Tarlow. But we do have a question. Mr. Orleans, you had a question? Please go to the microphone, sir. Well, thank you so much. Jimmy Tarlow with L.A. Perez and Company,
Thanks.
working with us this year, focused on county affairs and county legislation. That's something we greatly appreciate. In the past, we have worked together with our sister municipalities throughout the county, but because of some changes, we're working with you directly to kind of keep us up to date. The schedule of the legislative session on the county level is very, very different from the state. It's year-round, more or less.
Before I get into that, I just want to add one thing that Councilman Fritz did about collective bargaining, because it's something near and dear to my heart. Basically, Maryland is only one of 3 states in the country that have local control of collective bargaining. And I think Greenbelt is only 3 municipalities in Prince George's County that have collective bargaining. Nobody else has collective bargaining in the cities, nobody in St. Mary's County. You have as many rights Mississippi as you do in St. Mary's County or as you do in Hyattsville, Maryland in terms of collective bargaining. But the way the code is structured is every law is different. So there have been attempts to try and do collective bargaining where every municipality has to have something, but MML and MACO have really opposed it. But a long, uphill battle. But thank you. I'm sorry, I just had to add that.
Like I said, I was in your lane.
So thank you. I'm more familiar with the state and city stuff and councilman to a state legislature, but I'm really getting schooled in terms of what's going on in the county and monitoring all the bills. And the first thing I want to say is that the leadership of the county council has been very aggressive. In the last, I guess, 2 months, they've introduced over 50 bills and enacted a bunch of them, including a major package of 7 bills on Immigration Enforcement Act, which have been very good. And just this week, they are enacting a whole bunch of things on child care that, they've been very aggressive. And I wasn't a believer, but, I'm really impressed with the leadership of the county right now in terms of doing stuff. As I said in the report, that over 50 bills have been introduced. I've been trying to focus on bills that have direct impact. Well, obviously, immigration has direct impact, but ones that are focused just on, that Greenbelt might be interested in knowing about. One of them, which I think the mayor and Councilwoman Pompey raised with me, was the issue about this community ownership rules and regulations that they've passed. When I looked into it more, this basically had already been discussed last year, and it was pretty much baked in. There had been a lot of complaints by condominiums that people didn't know what was going on, that people didn't live in the communities, that the amount of contingency funds were down to 0 and people didn't know. So they passed a bunch of kind of common sense regulations that might be somewhat cumbersome on some of the condominiums and homeowners associations, but people feel that it was more important to make sure that people knew what was going on. And I kind of listed those things, but making sure the majority of the board members live in the community, that that if the contingency fund goes down to 0, people know about it, those kinds of things. So that's something that may affect your HOAs, and you may want to let them know. The other thing is that there's a task force on streamlining development. This is important because we've had discussions in the council here about the fact that we would like to do zoning or permitting, or that the delays on county permitting. So we think this is a real good venue for us to start raising this issue, that why can't the city do a lot of the permitting? It would save the county money.
Time.
But yeah, and time. But I think we have to be aggressive about, going to meetings and saying it. I know the council is starting having budget tours. They have budget meetings next Monday at Rolling Crest and on Tuesday at the Temple Hills Community Center. But I think we should be raising these things at meetings. They're in a budget crunch. Now is the time to start raising those kinds of issues. In fact, another new development, is that they're basically shifting the enforcement of permitting to the Homeland Security Department.
What?
Yeah. Not this. I'm not the county one. not ISO.
So it's
Not the
public
nas-
safety,
Huh?
I guess. So it's sort of like a public safety,
And I'm not sure why. There's a briefing on it tomorrow in front of one of the committees, and I'll be monitoring and exactly why they're doing it. But they're basically taking all the people who actually enforce the permitting. I guess it's like code enforcement, but we'll know. I don't know. Have you heard anything about it?
So they're taking it out of DPI and moving it to the DCAO.
I have not heard, but
It's
Yeah,
on the. It was on.
It's very creative.
Yeah. If you look at there's no number. It's basically it's a budget transference.
Huh.
Let's see.
Well, I know. I read that they had announced that they are completely streamlining the process, and they're launching some new initiatives. With the first specific that I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's going to be in discussion on tomorrow, where they're going to have a discussion on the reason they're doing it. Let me just see if I get it.
I can see some from an operations perspective. There being value. There has been at least 2 large multifamily complexes that have been condemned because of code compliance issue, and both properties were over 100 units. So displacing that number of people does create a certain level of disaster management. Um, Jimmy, your microphone is off, so we're not picking you up. This one's on. Oh, so it's just mine. Jamari? Is mine the only one? Wow. Well, there's yours. Yours is on. Oh, it's mute. Yours is mute.
Stop touching it.
Yeah, except for this one. This one's on.
Anyway, 84 positions will be transferred.
There we go.
send you the PowerPoint that just got sent out today. You know, the other
There you go.
thing
There-
that
it's on-
came up,
it's on now.
and I think council members found, picked it up first is the basic cuts in the school budget, and we have to monitor those. And there's not any list of when the hearings are going to be, but people should try and, we'll let people know as soon as there could be hearings, the times to talk. I mean, we should bring, again, your council person and your two at-large people in and talk about this stuff, because I think, that, you want to let people know how Greenbelt feels about these things. And
It's a good idea. Unfortunately, our schedule's pretty tight, but I think it should be a priority if we can get them to talk to us at the beginning of a council member as a meeting, as a presentation, or find another way to kind of fit in to
well,
share.
even
our
if you had a
concerns.
delegation, I mean, of people from the council there, I mean, it's sometimes hard to bring them there, so you have people go, a delegation to go there, I think would make sense to do that.
Thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah.
I'll take you up on that.
But, I think the number thing now we're going to have to look at is the budget and how it affects people and monitor this thing. And
So the county executive has a hearing coming up, I guess, on March the 30th. And at that point, it's her budget, so the county council will begin having hearings before they actually act on the budget. Is that how it works?
it's I think I sent out a PowerPoint, but I can leave it again. There's a whole process which starts now. It's got now in terms of it's at the council. She's presented the budget, and then the departmental hearings, and then there's big budget hearings. And so I think what you have to do is basically go to, some of the departmental hearings. They're going to have public hearings, and the public hearings next week are on Monday and Tuesday. But these are only the beginning ones, so it's going to go on for a while.
I was in a meeting this afternoon briefly, and the county executive was there, and she, stated once again that she's closed the structural deficit. Didn't really say how, but she's really clear about that. She's made some moves, and I think there'll be a lot of discussion.
Yes, and there's also the impact of the sphere, the big, the big thing they're going to have in National Harbor. It's going to, bring lots of money. But the other thing I think, what I get a sense, honestly, in council that you're going to have to figure out how to resist, the new leadership of the council is into kind of shifting resources to South County,
Yes.
away from North County, and I've heard nonprofits already in the northern part of the county being kind of cut back. I know in past years it's been a pet peeve from the people in the south that, people in the north, because if you got the money going into, the FBI, the Route 1 corridor, College Park, the Gateway, people in the South County have been kind of saying, what's our share? And so we're going to have to be careful the fact that, we still maintain that's common sense that, good projects should be maintained, even if they're geographically in the north or, and that's very important that we have to push back, because I get a sense of the council. One other bill I want to mention, this and council's moving very fast, is, which you may hear about, is that the council just moved out of the committee of the whole a bill that would raise the fees for liquor stores to $5,000. I mean, generally, they want to have something called Quality of Life Fund.
Right.
So they raised the liquor stores to $5,000, tobacco shops to $5,000, firearms dealers to $5,000, and storage use to $5,000.
Yeah, it sounds as though they are trying to dissuade or limit the number of those businesses in the county.
The council chair, Crystal Oriata, was very. She wasn't subtle. She said, "We don't want you." I mean, that Upper Marlboro has like, some of these communities have liquor stores, like row after row after row, and even in Mount Rainier, we have 3 liquor stores within like a 2-block area, and it's a problem. And I think people want to have quality development, but they don't want like more tobacco shops and something like that.
And if the money's going to these, what kind of fund did you suggest? Sort of like a public service kind of a fund that's,
What is the fee now if it's going to be, is it being increased to 5,000 or is there not a fee now?
It's being increased to 5,000.
And do you know what it was before, just out
No,
of
it wasn't
curiosity?
mentioned here. I could find out.
Okay,
Look at it.
yeah, I was just curious because it's, going from 4 to 5 is different than going from 1,000 to 5,000 just in terms of thinking about the scale of the increase.
George's has 18 liquor stores for every 100,000 residents, the second most in the country. for the
Really?
county. And some municipalities are even worse. If you go to Capitol Heights and you go to, some of these small towns. They were talking about Upper Marlboro. It's like row after row of liquor stores. So, I mean, I think the busy stuff in the state, is now. The busy stuff for us is going to be dealing with the budget, which is going to be over the next few months.
So, Mr. Charlo, if I could sort of ask the same question that I asked Daryl, the process in the county is very different than the process on the state level. So there's the committee hearings, there's 3 readings. Can you just concisely sort of summarize the process of how a bill goes from start to end with the county?
Honestly, it's very quick right now. I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, there's a first reading, and then it goes to the committee, and then they have a second reading and a passage. But they suspend the rules, and it's not the same way it's done in the state. So today, some bills don't go to committees. They go to something committee of the whole, and they suspend the rule. So there were a bunch of bills, good bills, that were suddenly pushed through, in one day. So it's not quite the deliberative process you find in the state. Like the enforcement package were great bills, and they were pushed through. Like there was a first reading. It didn't even go to a committee. It went to a committee of a whole. Then they suspended the rules and voted on it the next day. Normally the process should be there's a first reading and presentation, and then it goes to a committee, and then it goes back to the full council for a second reading and for a full vote. But I've been actually somewhat surprised about how quickly the process goes. And so.
And from what you've learned and what you know, as far as impacting the process, is a letter as impactful as actually testifying? And testifying, is it better in person or virtual? Or with things moving so fast, does it really not make that much of a difference? Letters maybe.
I mean, I was going to ask, is there even how could you even send a letter or testify as fast
I
as things
think
are moving?
usually in the council, one of the things one does, and what I've been watching. So interestingly, there's the data center, right?
Yes.
And so somebody's been encouraging people who are pro data centers to speak, all right? And so every meeting, I'm not saying somebody's paying them or what they're doing, but I'm Joan from here, and I support data centers, and they come to every public hearing. And so I think sometimes just going to a public hearing, and raising these issues are important. When we can actually find when a hearing is at, but I even think these budget hearings, which are happening, Monday and Tuesday, if people can go to one and just hear what's going on and raise what's happening, that's really useful. But I mean, normally there's supposed to be a public hearing on every bill that gets done.
And with the public hearings, and committee hearings, you have to sign up the day before to speak, or can
No.
you just show up and
Yeah.
speak? Yeah. Councilmember Fritz?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, there's a lot going on in the county. Working for a different legislature, I'll say they don't move nearly as fast either. on the liquor store, you said 18 for every 100,000 residents?
Yeah.
Wow. In Montgomery County, there are 26 total. So,
Well, it's good.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they
it's
have
like
county liquor
they have
stores.
county liquor stores, and that brings in, and all the 100% of the profits go to support the school system. Like $30 million a year of the profits go there, and they have a much more. If anything, I've heard people complain there aren't enough liquor stores in Montgomery County. You have to go pretty far to find one of the 26. But something I'm interested with regards to the budget, something that anyone who's heard me talk to anyone from the county knows is I'm very concerned about the deployment of capital bike share, and that is something that is done by DPWT. And I think that I don't want to make any preliminary announcements, but I think we have some good news that we'll be able to share soon. But I think something that's very frustrating to me is that Prince George's County has the most metro stations of any county in the DMV. We're second only to the District of Columbia, and we have 27 bike share stations across the county, and they have not been prioritizing the installation at metro stations, which is where you would think you would want a bike share rental to be prioritized. And that, we have 4 in this city, and it's somewhat comical that you have 4 bike shares that you can ride around the city, but you can't park them at the metro. And that's our tax dollars that are not being well invested. And it's showing people that there isn't thought going into our planning process for how we're deploying these technologies. And we say we want to be transit oriented, but we're not actually focusing on the user experience. So something.
Is that a WMATA issue?
It's not a WMATA issue. WMATA has been very cooperative. The issue is squarely with DPWT. They have a lot of leeway to decide where they prioritize these locations. And if you actually go to any of the 4 stations in Greenbelt, it says that there is one at the metro because it's been promised since the 4 other stations were installed. And I was told that it would be installed. When I moved here, I asked then Councilmember Calvin Hawkins, his staff reached out, and they said December 2024 they were going to build it at the metro. We're now in March of 2026. So when we have this money allocated for a purpose that is supposed to make our county more transit oriented, I really think there should be budgetary enforcement language that requires them to share their rationale of where they're putting them and to prioritize our metro and bus hubs for future investment. I'm not going to try and relitigate what happened, why ours was delayed for years, but I'm sure there are other communities that also would like this kind of investment, and we want to make sure that it's actually enhancing our transportation system, not just being a kind of postmodern art sculpture that says we like transit, but it doesn't connect to anything.
It's funny.
You said there's good news, so we shouldn't erase it right now, or okay?
I don't want to jinx it,
I'm not saying it.
but I think we might have had a breakthrough after months of advocacy with all of our county officials. I'll just say the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I mean, years of advocacy.
Years of
actually.
advocacy, but this most recent iteration, right, of really holding all the newest folks to it. I don't know why we were passed over, but allegedly it's going to happen this fiscal year, and I don't want to jinx it any more than that. If it happens this fiscal year, I'll be over the moon.
Hey, I did want to ask about a couple of things. With the Common Ownership Communities Bill, the way that it was amended looks much better. I have to wonder a little bit about the training. Who's going to provide or pay for the training? I guess it would be the association CAI that does most of that. And the notification when HOA runs out of money. I don't know if they're going to be looking at reserve funds as well, but they definitely need to do that. I think a couple other things in your report. Did you mention something about bond sales? I guess they're talking about selling bonds or something to raise money for the Sphere, I guess.
Yes, and they haven't really detailed that yet.
And certainly electric bills and data centers have been a hot topic, no pun intended. But people are struggling with the utility bills, so they are looking at some bills to try and give people relief. Is that correct?
You know that? Yes, of course.
I was following the state bill was looking at two things. They provided funding to kick off some energy projects that are at risk, and the governor is adamant in supporting more generation in the state. The second thing that the bills were looking to do was put a price cap on what PJM
Yeah.
would could pass along on the supply cost.
They're the ones that actually generate the electricity.
Yeah, PGM administers the
Distributed.
regional transmission.
Uh-huh.
They're the regional transmission operator, so they operate all the transmission lines that carry supply to its endpoint, the consumer. Or the distributor, which would be Pepco for us. So the state bill, the state is looking to pass legislation and put a price cap on PJM. I'm curious to see how that's gonna play out, because a lot of it depends on what the auction pricings will go for, and if the auction price exceeds the price cap, how's the difference going to be covered?
Well, one of the pieces of legislation is CR 19, which basically removes the exemption from a detailed site plan review. So right now, there's an exemption for data centers, and the Ariada, Blagay, and Denoga have introduced that. They didn't move it quickly, so there must be some negotiations going on.
What was that? Exemption for what?
Detailed site plans.
So right now, there's an exemption for way I understand, there's an exemption for data centers.
That they don't have to submit detailed site plans.
That's correct. And
That's like the exact opposite of what we should be doing, 'cause we should be regulating them.
right. So basically, the leadership bill, the council president's bill, basically says that to remove, so they would have to go through a detailed site plan. There's also been some talk about trying to do data centers in South County. There's a lot of kind of lobbying going on that thing.
I mean, I think with data centers, I went to a forum on this recently where, WSSC talked about how in Prince George's County, we're very behind the ball on this. Like, we're not ready for data centers. But one thing that they did talk about was the importance of the county having really strong regulations. Like, we need to be firm. If the county's going to decide to allow them in, we need to have very firm regulations on what they're required to do, on transparency, on all of that. Like, it's going to be really, really important for us the county to maintain a very tight hold on what's going on, because right now there's very little transparency. I mean, when WSSC was saying when the data center companies come to them to talk to them, they have to sign NDAs. So they can't even reveal what they're, so this is, I mean, we're going to have to, if they want data centers, they're really going to have to lay down the law so that we can do this in the best way for our communities here.
I will get the bill to the city manager, and maybe it'd be worth, again, the mayor, or the council writing a letter to your council, because I'm not sure that Councilman Adams has heard from you yet on issues. I mean, has he been, or
We've been dialogue. I mean, he had a listening session today, and I'm sure data centers came up in the even I'm sure that.
He did?
It was, I think, the second question
And what
or
did he
second
say?
comment.
He was not responding to questions. It was solely a listening session.
Listening. Yeah. Interesting. Hey, so just to kind of wrap things, I think we're kind of getting to the end. I did want to ask, so with the county council being very aggressive on the issues that affect people's pocketbooks and lives in a very direct way, is there any discussion, about the gasoline price increasing and the food prices are going up because of the tariffs? Is the county council beginning to talk and think about ways that we might be able to mitigate some of those impacts?
It was interesting. I listened to the committee of the whole because of the package of bills on childcare, and I think on that issue, Chair Oriata and people were really talking about. There was a whole package of bills that were really very good. one bill basically, she described how sometimes people have a year's, you have to book a childcare for a year, and they don't read the fine language, and somebody kind of spouse died, and they wanted to take the kid out, and they weren't allowed to, and trying to have more placements. So I think on those pocketbook issues that they're dealing with it, but as a general thing, it's hard because just, you're dealing with national issues. But I think I've actually been very impressed on issues really getting into, I think 6 different bills on childcare that, trying to make it more affordable, trying to put childcare centers in places like county buildings, trying to find out where it was, and I don't know if I had all of them, a scholarship center, childcare expansion and quality. So she has a whole package of bills. I've been impressed on that issue, but not on anything on general.
Yeah, I would just think that in these times, over the past couple of weeks, people would be thinking about price gouging a little bit and trying to make sure that things are as affordable as they could be or should be in the context of the time.
It's often a question of jurisdiction, who actually who has the ability to do that.
Councilman Fritz, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna add one thing about data centers because it came up at the CPC meeting for COG today, and I will say that there were a lot of. It's the 10th anniversary of CEPC. Yeah, it's a very. I'm learning, but CEPC. And they noted that they estimate that 11% of regional emissions are now coming from data centers, and they gave some pretty sobering statistics that WMATA at its peak demand to run all of the metro trains uses 175 megawatts of power. Dominion Energy's peak system demand that it's ever recorded was 25,000 megawatts, or 25 gigawatts, just for comparison. And then, so 25 gigawatts of power, and that data center demand in the region, or just for Virginia, is expected to go up another 25 gigawatts, so to double.
And that's by 2030.
By
right?
2030, they expect, at current rates, electricity consumption would double in Virginia just because of data centers. And that would completely destroy our ability to hit any of our climate goals. So, I mean, and I'm not saying that we as the city of Greenbelt are going to fix this problem. I'm not going to say the state of Maryland or Virginia alone are going to fix the problem. I think it's a national problem. But I think we have to be honest. And that was a topic of debate today, is are we going to actually tell our constituents, are we going to be honest with the public, the path that we're on? Because, emissions dipped all the way from 2005 to 2020, and then they're actually back up again. And part of that growth is attributable to data centers. So, we've made robust climate commitments, and it will be very hard, if not impossible, to keep them, especially on our current trajectory of how we're doing this. And I think it was a very sober conversation. There was a lot of sullen faces after that conversation was had today.
I think there's some really important conversations going on in the DMV with Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments around data centers. Also, at the National League of Cities conference last week, listening to the folks from across the country, elected officials, a lot of the same concerns, maybe at different points in the process, but people are grappling with utilization and the cost and the impacts. It's a serious time, very serious time that we're living in. If there are no additional questions from council, I'd like to kind of give our two contractors a chance to kind of summarize and wrap things up. But
Sorry,
Councilman,
I'll just say one other point to that, to Mr. Fritz's point and to your point. Like, this is one of the reasons that, if the county decides to allow data centers in, that regulation is so important. Like, there are different ways of doing things, and we need to, the county needs to force them to be creative and force them to do things that there are things that they can do that have less environmental impact. And we have to make them do them if they want to come in here. So I think a lot of times people see dollar signs in their eyes when they think about data centers coming in, but there's just so much more to it than that. You can't just think about tomorrow. You have to think about 10 years from now. So that's I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, I think this question about how to mitigate the impacts is tough. But data centers, we're using the resources. So somehow mitigating or figuring out how things can be close to where the resources are currently, the infrastructure currently is. Those are things that the county, the state, and municipalities like Greenbelt are thinking of all across the country. So it's going to take a little bit of work.
A lot of work.
Mr. Orleans, you have a question? And is there anybody online with thoughts or questions?
I don't see any hands raised online.
Okay.
Thank you. First, with regard to Councilmember Fritz's interest in capital bike share, if and when the county executive is ever making an appearance at the council work session, certainly this question should be put to her. The listening session held earlier tonight was kind of odd in many respects. There actually was a colloquy, not between Tim Adams and one of the speakers, but between Crystal Oriata and one of the speakers, that extended colloquy after his time had expired, and it concerned data centers. It's unclear to me what the county council's individual members or the collective long-term perspective is on data centers, but it was the source of considerable conversation. Unfortunately, I don't think that thing was recorded. But I had two questions, primarily, well, Mr. Carrington represents the City of Greenbelt Council on the State General Assembly affairs, but Mr. Tullo had 4 years of experience there. So this is a question put to the both of them. But specifically for Mr. Tarlow, I did not hear a reference, I don't think, to a bill that I'm very much interested in and have no idea what its status is, and a bill introduced by Delegate Stewart. I think it's HB 78. Oh, you did mention it? I'm sorry, Mr. Carrington. And I don't know its status. As I understand it, and I've read it, it's only based on an understanding, but it's very appealing to me. It would grant counties authorities, theoretically, that municipalities have now, taxing authorities as it relates to land use. Although I would say that many municipalities don't take advantage of the authorities they have now. Can either of you tell me the status of that?
I don't think it's going to move, Mr. Orleans.
Well, that's a shame. This, I think, is the second year in which he's introduced essentially the same legislation, although I'm told this year's varies somewhat from last year's. I've been back.
It died in both chambers. It had a cross file and
I've been back in Maryland 22 years now, and while I can't make it to Annapolis every year, I'm sort of interested in wrap-ups of what happens in Annapolis. And I'm convinced that every year good bills die in Annapolis, and there's a kind of universal aspiration set next year in Annapolis. But next year comes around and it dies then too. And then maybe after 6 or 8 years, something that was good 6 or 8 years prior will pass, maybe not in its original form. As residents of the state, as people who elect these people who go to Annapolis and Upper Marlboro or now Largo, we've got to do a better job. And I'm wondering if either of the two guests tonight, either of the two people, contractors paid for by Greenbelt funds, have any ideas as to how the process in Annapolis and or Largo can be improved. I would say that I don't know that Mr. Carrington is prepared tonight, and I know I asked Mr. Tarlow this in his last year
Mr. Orleans?
in service. How often is the
Mr.
rule,
Orleans.
and I'm concluding right now, how often is the rule in either the House or the Senate allowing members to petition to the floor something that the chair and or the speaker or the president wants kept in the drawer?
Mr. Orleans.
How often is that used?
The good news in the House is that we have a speaker now who's very aggressive and very much willing to push things, and more stuff is going to be passed in the next few years. It was passed, I think, in the last 10 years out of the House. I know Speaker Pena Melnick very well, and I think anything that has halfway to it, she'll get through. The bad news, and being there 4 years, unfortunately, we live in a one-party state, so all the corporate money goes, all the kind of big money goes to the Democrats, and so while they're not as progressive in Maryland as they are in Greenbelt or in other states, because they're influenced a lot by money from special interests at a leadership level. I was there, and you can see it that the big players and the big lobbyists, not like unless you've changed, not like Darrell or me in terms of lobbyists, the big lobbyists who get millions of dollars are very close to the Democrats, and it's a revolving thing. A lot of people who legislators get jobs as for the lobbying firms, and then they have a lot more influence. So it's a crooked system, I have to say, and it needs to be changed. That's my.
I don't share. I don't share my colleagues' opinion that it's a completely crooked system. I really don't. I think people have no trust in the system because we say things like that. I think you're all very honest people, each and every one of you, and you're elected officials and you work very hard. And there are a lot of people in Annapolis that do exactly the same thing. I'm not going to impugn those people who are knocking on doors and trying to work hard for you. I just won't do that. Do we have processes that could be improved? I think that they try to. As a matter of fact, as he was saying, our dear friend, the speaker, Pena Melnick, she has added a new standing committee. That hasn't been done in 30 years, 40 years. And she's looking at the functions. I mean, because she was a chair for so long and because she has seen so much, we both came in the same year. I think we came in the same year. So I've been there. This is my 20th session. I know that place pretty well. And I know all the members. I think there may be 11 or 12 members of that body who have been there longer than me at this point. So I have a lot of respect for them and the hard work that they do. I mean, these people were there until what, like 10:30 on Monday? I mean, I was sending you guys updates the entire time. So let's be careful about what we say. That's it.
I didn't mean crooked like people are feeling. I just mean the system is. I meant that the system is leveraged to the people with special interests as opposed to working people. People try and change it, but that's mine. Seeing what's happening.
So one thing that I've heard frequently is the session does not begin. Sine die isn't really the end of the session. It's really the beginning of the next session. So being proactive and advocating for bills, things that we want, is a year-round endeavor, and we really need to get an earlier start next year, if at all possible.
Mr. Mayor, and to that point, and you've heard me say that repetitively, that's my phrase that pays. Sine die is the end of one session, and the next day is the beginning of the next one. And while we're going to all go and lick our wounds for a few weeks after we get done with Sine die, really, by the first week of May, you really need to start thinking about what your priorities are. And what I would love to suggest to the body, just because of the way and how fast Annapolis works, we have to actually set ourselves up in such a way that we can comment on things that are coming up, because oftentimes we may be a week behind when the hearing is, and unfortunately, I can sometimes get somebody to put something into a record, but ultimately the record closes once the hearing is over, and then no one actually reads that. So I'm saying that we really need to think, listen, nothing has changed in Annapolis since time immemorial. The second Wednesday in every January at noon, we come to Annapolis to start the session. The second Monday at midnight, they set us free. And we know that the 69th day of the session is crossover. I mean, we know all of these things already. So there really is no reason for us not to start thinking about, okay, let's make sure that we have a meeting the first week of January or the second week of January, where we can look at the pre-file bills. And then let's make sure we have, some type of a session in early February where we're looking at, because by about what's the introduction dates are normally what, the 30th day of the session, something like it's like by the 30th day of the session, both the House and Senate, and it depends upon who has the budget first as to who has the earlier date. But we know all of these things ahead of time, so we can actually set ourselves up to be prepared to be able to actually weigh in on this and have our voices on the record.
And we need to do that. And MML has actually sort of accelerated their process with their legislative committee, and we just need to, in order to advocate most effectively for Greenbelt, we need to just do a few things earlier in the year and just have our game plan, have the plan, and then work the plan and follow through. So as far as next steps for council, given the report and where we are, what are council's next steps, Mr. Carrington?
Honestly, I think that you guys have done a really good job of pulling together the bills that would matter most to your residents, the things that are going to have the biggest impacts on their quality of life and their day-to-day. And I think you guys have done that. We are now in the stage of, I try to advise my clients, I'm like, all right, we're now in the grown folk stage of the session where they're going to be working with one another and horse trading and figuring out which bills leadership is going to move and which bills are going to, not move this year and move next year. So I think you guys are in a good place for us to monitor what we're looking at. But there's nothing for us to proactively do at this particular place. If our bills have crossed over and they're in decent posture, I will let you know if we need to put pressure on someone, but I'll go and put pressure on them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to have to do that. I'll do that for you.
Appreciate that. And we do want to keep an eye on that Senate Bill 1005, just for our residents.
And to let you know, I was just on the phone with the chairman. I apologize, but I figured you guys would want me to take that. And this actually is the county exec's bill. However, it was motivated by what I said earlier. He's a new coach, and he wants to bring in his own team, and it really is a matter of that. And he's like, it's only 3 positions, but I do know that it has caused a lot of angst.
That's
Well, and again, that's an estimate. Did you read my notes? That's an estimate. They don't know if it's going to be a brand new IT person, if they already have an IT person in place that they're going to give the title to. There's a lot of things that could happen. Those assumptions were based upon trying to replace the entirety of those apartments. I spoke with the analyst who did the work, and if you read the fiscal note, it says in there that we're making assumptions. We don't know what the exact number will be. But $10 million is a big number, but that's not coming out. Our residents will pay it, but again, I'm just giving you what they told me.
Let's continue to track that. Mr.
Absolutely.
Carlo, next steps for council?
I think it's all about the budget and trying to monitor and go to budget hearings and try and figure out the school budget and try and find out about especially seeing if we can get in Greenbelt the ability to do some permitting. I think that would make a major thing. So I would focus on those 2 things.
Permitting, and we do want to weigh in on the school budget.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none.
Did you send this? I sent this thing. Did you get that to people? Yeah, no. Okay, good. Okay. This kind of gives you the whole outline of the process for how they do the budget. It doesn't have specific meeting dates, but
Right.
kind of gives you a sense of it.
Appreciate it. And Mr. George, Mr. Samarone, any questions or comments for our contractors as we sit and wrap up the session here? The work
None
session?
for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, really, really appreciate your good work, and let's keep in contact.
I promise. I thought you guys were sick of my emails.
Yeah, please, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is just an information item, but I just wanted, I will send out again that schedule with suggested questions for the budget sections. Again, not that things can't come up during the meetings, but because we don't have meetings for spring break, for PGCPS spring break, that gives time to that. I was going to send it out just now, but I realized I will add page numbers for the sections, for each of the sections for the relevant work sessions now that we have the actual budget book. But I will send out that schedule that we passed at the January 28th meeting. But the first one is if you can, by the end of Tuesday, the overview revenues in general government, other funds, non-departmental and fund transfers, economic development and planning and community development by next Tuesday, so that staff has time to answer the written questions for inclusion in the packet on Friday 4/3 for that work session on the 8th.
Is the packet online now?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So that was my information item, but I
Well,
will
thank you so much.
send I will send out the full thing with page
And the
numbers.
packet, the budget that's online, the page numbers match pretty much what is in the book.
Yes, they should.
All right, very good. And did you have an information item for us, Mr. Samaron?
Yes, we are happy to announce that we are now streaming. If you look around, we're now streaming on cable. We have been streaming to YouTube and Zoom, but if you look up in the room, there are 3 cameras. If you're wondering what does the white light and the red light means, follow the red light. That's the one that's broadcasting.
Very cool. Hello to all of our viewers on cable.
Hi. Oh, no,
So-
just one here.
It's moving.
So these are 4K cameras. We're limited by the server being put out, being able to stream at 1080. And if you're wondering why there's only 3, it turns out that when we did the angle analysis, we can cover the entire room with just 3 cameras. We do have 2 additional slots, but if we don't need them, we'll rather use the $2,000 that each camera costs to the.
Are those
on
face
the server.
tracking or is it manually switching?
They're manually switching, so it has a new controller to
There's probably
track.
some software, though, that we can put in.
So these do have AI. They're not activated because they will follow all the movement, and we may not want that. We don't want the cameras moving too much. So
Got it.
mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Quality
And
job,
let's
Jimmy.
go ahead and
Good job.
call it a night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.